It was just a mirror. A dusty antique in a forgotten shop, tucked between shadows and silence. 16-year-old Nora never meant to buy it, just like she never meant to make a wish. But some mirrors don't show you who you are. They show you what you're willing to become. And once you make a wish, it doesn't just come true. It comes for you. Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The fog rolled in thick that afternoon, curling like smoke around Nora's ankles as she walked home from school. The sky had turned the color of old paper, and the air hung with a damp stillness that muffled the sound of her footsteps. Normally, she took the main road through town, past the coffee shop and the bus stop, but today, on a whim, she turned down a narrow side street she'd never noticed before. It was a strange little alley. The buildings leaned inward as if sharing secrets, their bricks darkened with moss and age. On her left, wedged between a shuttered tailor's shop and a boarded-up bakery, was a narrow storefront with leaded windows and a crooked sign that read, Whitting and Sons, Antiquities and Curios. She hesitated, then pushed open the heavy oak door. A silver bell overhead gave a jarring clang that echoed long after she stepped inside. The shop smelled of old books and candle wax, of cedarwood and something faintly metallic. Stacks of mismatched furniture created a maze between narrow aisles. Clocks ticked out of sync. Mirrors leaned against every wall, their glass dulled with time or warped with age. Then she saw it. In the far corner, half covered by a velvet cloth, stood a mirror nearly as tall as she was. Its frame was silver, tarnished and etched with symbols that made her eyes itch to look at them. Unlike the others, its surface was clean, too clean, and it reflected the room behind her in unsettling detail. Almost too much detail. "Admiring the piece, are we?" came a voice from behind her. She jumped and turned. An old man stood at the counter, thin and pale with cataract-clouded eyes. He hadn't made a sound when he entered. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "This one's not for sale," he said slowly, voice rasping like dead leaves. "Unless, of course, you really want it." Nora opened her mouth to decline. She didn't need a mirror, and she certainly didn't have the money, but something about it drew her in. Her reflection seemed to lean closer, lips parted slightly as if waiting to speak. She couldn't look away. "How much?" she asked before she could stop herself. The old man tilted his head, as if amused. $10. She blinked. "That's it. No refunds. No returns." Nora dug through her bag and handed him a crumpled $10 bill. He took it without looking, then turned away without another word. No bag, no receipt. As she left the shop, mirror in tow, she noticed something strange. The fog had lifted, the sky was clear, and the alley behind her was gone. Only a blank brick wall remained. Nora wrestled the mirror up the narrow stairs to her room, her palms slick with sweat despite the cool evening air. The silver frame was heavier than it looked, cold to the touch even after being indoors. By the time she leaned it against her bedroom wall, the sky outside had deepened to a dusky violet. Crickets chirped half-heartedly from somewhere beyond her window, and the streetlights blinked to life, one by one. She stepped back to study it. The mirror didn't match anything in her room. Her plain white walls, the crooked bookshelf filled with dog-eared novels, or the posters that curled at the corners from too much tape and time. Still, it commanded the space, as if it had always been meant to be there. And the way it reflected, it was unsettling. Everything behind her was there, but not quite. The colors were more vivid, shadows sharper. Her reflection blinked a heartbeat too late. The way it tilted its head was subtly off, like a puppet missing a string. She shook her head. "Just tired," she mumbled. That night, long after she should have been asleep, Nora found herself drawn to it again. She sat cross-legged on the floor, staring into the mirror, watching herself breathe. It was quiet, too quiet. Her parents had gone to bed. The house seemed to hold its breath. She leaned closer, whispering without thinking, "I wish I were popular." She didn't know why she said it. Maybe it was the usual teenage ache, the loneliness, the awkwardness, the desire to be seen. Her words fogged the glass for a second. Then something happened. The surface rippled, just once, like a pebble dropped into still water. Nora gasped and fell backward. The mirror stilled. She stared, wide-eyed, heart hammering in her chest. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. She felt ridiculous, like a kid spooking herself with stories. Until her phone buzzed. She picked it up. One message. Then two. Then 5. Then hundreds. Her notifications exploded. Texts, tags, DMs, friend requests, comments. Nora blinked in confusion. The last message came from someone who hadn't spoken to her in years. Hey Nora, you're everywhere today. Everyone's talking about you. Where have you been hiding? She glanced back at the mirror. This time, her reflection was already smiling. The next morning, Nora woke to sunlight streaming through her curtains and her phone buzzing like a trapped wasp. She sat up, bleary-eyed, and blinked at the endless string of notifications lighting up her lock screen. Her name was everywhere. People she barely knew were tagging her in selfies they'd taken weeks ago. Someone had posted a TikTok clip from last year's talent show where she played piano, one she'd forgotten existed, and it had somehow gone viral overnight. There were flattering comments, glowing captions, heart emojis. It was like the whole school had collectively decided she mattered now. At first, it felt good. Really good. When she walked into the halls of Elderglen High, heads turned. Not in that fleeting, judgmental way they used to, but like they recognized her. Like they were waiting for her. People waved. Others whispered her name with awe, like she'd become a legend overnight. By third period, she was sitting at a lunch table she'd never been invited to before, sandwiched between influencers, star athletes, and the kind of girls who normally looked right through her. So what's your secret, Nora? Said Zoe Langley, head cheerleader and professional eye roller. You've totally rebranded. Nora laughed awkwardly. I guess I finally got seen. The girls laughed along. Too easily. By the end of the day, her Instagram had gained 4,000 followers. Her inbox overflowed with party invites. She even saw her name graffitied in glitter pen on someone's locker. But it wasn't all shine. Emma, her oldest friend, passed her in the hallway without a glance. When Nora waved, Emma just shrugged and kept walking. Liam, her neighbor and occasional walking buddy, had unfollowed her. She noticed because she'd gone looking. Her little brother, Danny, barely spoke to her at dinner. He kept sneaking glances at her like she was a stranger in their house. When she asked if something was wrong, he just said, "You look different." Later that night, alone in her room, Nora stood before the mirror again. "Is this what I wanted?" she whispered. Her reflection didn't answer. It only smiled, slow and wide, wider than she thought her own mouth could stretch. The parties came fast. Friday at Mason's house, Saturday at the lake, even a midweek pool bash that started on Snapchat and ended in a blurry TikTok montage. Nora was always at the center, smiling, spinning, lit by neon and camera flashes. People handed her drinks she didn't ask for, played songs she used to love until she hated them, and clung to her like gravity had shifted. But she started to feel hollow. Every laugh echoed strangely in her ears. Every compliment slid off her skin like oil. She laughed louder to cover the silence inside. She smiled wider so no one would see the cracks. Then came the next wish. It was after midnight on a Sunday. The parties had faded, and the house was still. Nora sat cross-legged in front of the mirror again, hair tangled, mascara smudged. Her phone buzzed beside her with more messages she didn't want to read. "I wish I were rich," she said, almost as a joke. Her voice trembled as she added, "Really rich. Like no worries rich." The mirror rippled again. This time it didn't shimmer. It shuddered, like something alive had stirred behind the glass. The temperature in the room dropped so fast her breath fogged the air. Her skin prickled with cold. Then it was still. She stared at her reflection for a long time, waiting for something. Nothing came. No instant messages, no breaking news, no chests of gold. Just her pale face staring back. The next day, her mother picked her up early from school. Nora's aunt, her father's estranged sister, had been in a car crash. The other driver survived. She didn't. She had no spouse, her mother said softly. No children. And well, she named you as her sole beneficiary. Nora couldn't speak. She must have seen something in you, her mother added, eyes distant. She left everything. Her home, her accounts. It's a lot. The legal process moved like lightning. Money poured into an account in Nora's name. Her parents looked at her differently now, proud but wary. Friends whispered when she passed. One girl cried in the bathroom about how unfair life was. Nora didn't argue. She didn't ask for this. Except she had. That night, she stood before the mirror with shaking hands. Did you kill her?" she whispered. Her reflection said nothing. But in the mirror, for just a moment, her aunt appeared behind her. Face pale. Eyes open. Mouth moving in silent warning. And then gone. The days blurred after that. Nora stopped going to school. She didn't need to. Tutors came to the house now, and a lawyer talked about early trust planning and minimizing press. Her parents walked on eggshells around her, unsure whether to be amazed or afraid. They never asked where the money came from. They didn't want to. But the mirror was changing. She noticed it first when brushing her hair. Her reflection blinked twice, quick, stuttering, then didn't blink at all. The hairbrush moved in her hand, but not in the glass. It just stared back, unblinking, unmoving, smiling. She covered the mirror with a bedsheet. That night, she dreamed in silver. The sky was a glass dome, and her bedroom floated in darkness. Something large pressed against the other side of the mirror, like a hand made of shadows. She heard whispers threading through the silence, slithering across her pillow. One wish, one thread, one life to shred. She woke gasping, drenched in sweat, her hands tangled in her sheets like vines. In the morning, the mirror was uncovered again. Her little brother swore he hadn't touched it, but when she asked where he'd been last night, he just stared at her with wide, watery eyes. "You're not you," he whispered before running from the room. By the end of the week, Nora couldn't take it anymore. She dragged the mirror up the attic stairs, nearly throwing out her back, and shoved it into a dusty corner between boxes of Christmas lights and forgotten junk. She wrapped it in a drop cloth and nailed it shut inside a wooden crate. She felt relief. For about 3 hours. Because even without it in the room, she felt watched. Her closet mirror would fog up on its own. Her laptop camera flickered on when she wasn't touching it. Once, she caught her reflection in a spoon, grinning when her real mouth was shut tight. Something was bleeding through. She went up to the attic that night and ripped the crate open, hand shaking as she yanked the cloth aside. "What are you?" she whispered. For the first time, the mirror spoke. Not in her head, not in a dream, but aloud with a voice like wind through broken glass. "Be careful what you wish for." Nora didn't remember running. One moment she was in the attic, heart pounding, the mirror's words echoing in her ears. And the next she was downstairs, barefoot in the kitchen, trembling beside the sink. Her hands were smeared with dust and blood. One of the nails had sliced open her palm. She wrapped it in a dish towel and stared out the window. Fog was crawling over the lawn again. The same thick, ghost-colored fog from the day she found the shop. For the rest of the night, she sat curled in bed, knees tucked to her chest, trying to make sense of it. The wishes. The changes. The deaths. It couldn't be undone. Could it? Her phone buzzed again. Another alert about her inheritance. Another message from someone pretending to be close. All hollow. All wrong. She scrolled past a photo of herself taken at some party she barely remembered. She didn't look like her anymore. That night, sometime between dream and waking, she stood in front of the mirror once more. She didn't remember going to the attic. Didn't remember unboxing it. But there it was, leaning against the wall, clean as ever, like it had never been touched. Her reflection stared back. Not smiling. Not smirking. Just waiting. Nora took a breath that rattled like dry leaves. "I wish none of this had ever happened," she said. "I wish I never made the first wish." The mirror didn't ripple. It cracked. A thin fissure snaked from the top right corner down through the center, like lightning frozen in glass. Light burst from within, a pulse of silver and shadow, and Nora stumbled back, shielding her eyes. Then silence. She opened them slowly. The mirror was gone. Not shattered. Gone. She was in her bed. Her real bed. The posters were different. Her phone sat quietly on the charger. No messages, no tags, no spotlight. Her closet mirror reflected her tired, familiar face. Her room smelled of laundry and lemon, not dust and secrets. It was over. She felt it in her bones. Downstairs, her parents argued softly about bills. Her brother shouted at a video game. Emma texted, "You good? Want to hang out this weekend?" Normal. Until she saw it. A thin crack, almost invisible, running through the middle of her bedroom mirror. At first, Nora told herself it was just a flaw in the glass. Cheap mirror, bad angle, weird lighting. But the crack didn't go away. If anything, it grew. Just a hair wider each morning, like it was stretching, like the mirror was healing from a wound, but healing wrong. She stopped looking directly into it. She used her phone's front camera to brush her hair. She avoided mirrored windows, shiny countertops, anything that could give her reflection a surface to appear on. But they were everywhere. School bathrooms, storefronts, her spoon during breakfast. And that's when she noticed something impossible. Sometimes, her reflection was still moving even after she'd stopped. It was subtle, just enough to doubt herself. A blink that came too late. A tilt of the head she didn't remember making. And always that almost smile. Like it was watching her. Other people were changing too. At school, Emma started calling her Noreen. A name she'd never gone by. Teachers hesitated when they read her name aloud. Kids in the hall acted like they recognized her. But from somewhere else. Then came the dreams. In them, she wandered through an empty version of her house. Every mirror reflected a different moment from her past. First kiss, childhood tantrum, even the day she found the antique shop. But in every one, her reflection was off. Pale. Still. Smiling. In the final dream, she found herself standing in front of the attic mirror again. The symbols on the frame pulsed with dim red light. Her reflection leaned forward and whispered, "You tried to run, but you wished. I never left." She woke up screaming. She checked the attic. Nothing. No mirror. No crate. Just dust. But later that night, while brushing her teeth, she looked up and saw two reflections. One was her. The other stood just behind her left shoulder. It looked like her, but its eyes were solid black. And it was grinning. She stopped sleeping. Every night brought more visions of her reflection walking through her house, whispering to her family, touching her things. Her bedroom mirror was worse now. The crack had widened, and her other self pressed closer to the glass each day, her face stretching unnaturally against the barrier, smiling like she'd been waiting for a very long time. Nora tried everything. She smashed every mirror in the house. The bathroom. Her phone. Even her laptop screen. But it didn't matter. Her reflection appeared in puddles, in the backs of spoons, in polished windows at night. It was always there. And now others were starting to see her too. Her mother gasped one morning and dropped her coffee mug. "I thought for a second, I saw, you were standing behind yourself." Her father said nothing when it happened to him. Just left the room and didn't come back for hours. Danny, her little brother, cried and wouldn't say why. The world itself felt unstable. Lights flickered more often. People forgot things they should remember. Her name showed up in online articles that she never wrote, her face in photos she'd never posed for. It was unraveling. She stood before the cracked mirror in her room for what felt like the last time. Her reflection didn't mimic her anymore. It watched her, and then it stepped forward, inside the glass but closer than ever. It moved its mouth. This time Nora heard it clearly. "You wished me here. Now wish me gone." She felt something shift in the air. The way her lungs tightened, how the shadows in the corners seemed to grow teeth. Her hands trembled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I wish you were gone," she whispered. "I wish you were gone." The mirror flared with blinding white light. Then silence. No breath. No heartbeat. And no reflection. She stood alone in a darkened room, the mirror now smooth, whole, and empty. A perfect pane of glass. It no longer reflected anything at all. Not the bed, not the window, not her. She raised her hand. Nothing looked back. Because something had taken her place. And in a room just like hers, behind a glass wall the real world would never see, the other Nora stepped forward into the light, blinking into existence. Free.